Welcome to the Talent Equation Podcast. If you are passionate about helping young people to unleash their potential and want to find ways to do that better, then you've come to the right place. The Talent Equation Podcast seeks to answer the important questions facing parents, coaches, and talent developers as they try to help young people become the best they can be. This is a series of unscripted, unpolished conversations between people at the razor's edge of the talent community who are prepared to share their knowledge, experiences, and challenges in an effort to help others get better faster. Listen, reflect, and don't forget to join the discussion at thetalentequation.co.uk. Enjoy the show.
So, bit of a different recording medium for the Talent Equation podcast because I'm actually sitting across my kitchen table with the inimitable Kendal McWade back on the podcast. I think you were one of my first 4 or 5 guests, Kendal. We did a 2-parter, and it's great to have you back.
Thank you. Sure. It's lovely to be at your kitchen table.
So Kendal's been on one of his tours down in the south of England, working with various people, including my son and including a good friend of mine, working on their games. And he also came to watch me coach last night, working with the kind of the junior academy squad that I work with. So I might just start there, Kendal, and ask you about what were your reflections of kind of watching me in action with the motley crew of youngsters that I have to try and contend with on a regular basis?
It was fascinating. That's the second time I've watched it. Sure. I would say, I think I said it last night when we spoke, that the way you coach is probably... people don't appreciate just the skill that you have at creating those environments, those constraints to evoke change and behaviour. And yeah, it was very, very impressive, I must admit. Really nice to watch. Enlightening for me as well. It's a different environment because it's team sport, but and it's kind of that on the move game against golf as a stationary sport. But yeah, I could definitely learn a lot from watching last night. So it was really nice. Yeah. Blooming freezing, man.
It seems to always be freezing whenever we're doing stuff. Hockey pitches tend to be pretty freezing. No, last night was an interesting session for me as well. I was just thinking about it earlier on as well. And one of the things that I have been reflecting on with the group is the way in which I can try and get a little bit more enhance their kind of understanding of what it is they're trying to achieve and ways in which that they can, solve the problems. And guiding them towards that, because something that I know you do a lot is very much take somebody on that journey, a guided discovery journey. And I will talk a bit with you later on about where I am, having worked with you a few times on that journey. But my time is so limited with each player that I'm having to, I'm a bit constrained. So as a result, I'm not able to probably explore with them as much as I'd like to. I'm usually guiding, and probably guiding quite quickly, a bit quicker than perhaps I'd want to. So it's a reflection, actually. Maybe I need to just think about some of the ways I'm positing questions to either the group or the individuals and giving them the opportunity to explore, having just dropped an idea on them, as opposed to necessarily wanting to sort of explore a solution with them there and then. Maybe I could just ask a question and then they could come back to me later on, or give them a puzzle to solve, an individual puzzle. And perhaps I felt I was just a little bit quick to jump in with an offer of an opportunity for action, and so I think there was a danger that I was kind of solving problems probably for them without overtly doing it, but just kind of guiding to a solution, and that's my solution, not their solution. So there's something I need to stay and just need to be aware of, I think.
Well, I think your challenge, that having watched you coach, your challenge is obviously creating those new environments that will evoke the change you want, and that's quite difficult in a game that's constantly motioning and moving and changing. And I like that little bit of pull them out of the game, have a chat, little quick bit of discussion with them, and then put them back in the match. I thought that was fantastic. I really did. To be fair, I've not watched much hockey coaching, but looking at the other guys and the other squads, I don't think that was happening there. So it's quite a unique scenario. The boys won't know any difference. I suppose one of the things that's different between that and perhaps golf is the fact that you probably are their only coach. So as an England coach, then I'm one of potentially one or two or even more coaches for the boys. So there sometimes can be a conflict of message that the boys are getting. So they've had a journey that with a message that's saying this, and I might be challenging that. I'm not meaning to, but just by my questioning, by my actions, I might be challenging that. And I do look at you with envy, knowing that really there's not going to be that with you. They're not going to come back and say, well, that's a bit of a problem, Stuart, because I was working on this with my coach. So it didn't look as if that would be an issue. But yeah, I thought it was terrific. I really did. I've watched you twice now, and I think they're great. I think, as I say, it's a highly, highly skilled approach that people don't realise.
Yeah, and the interesting, I suppose, thing for me as well is that I was just thinking as you were talking there about one of the things I have the opportunity to do is watch my players in a competitive environment, either in a training context because I've created a game for them to play to compete in, or in a genuine competitive environment on sort of match day. And in a golf context, I know you work in this way where you create competitive environments and you work with the players and you're able probably to discuss options and tactical approaches with them and shots to play, and you work with them in that way. But not many coaches in golf do they? They're generally in a removed environment from a competitive scenario, generally speaking, probably working on some aspect of technique, I guess, or skill, I suppose, one way or another, but usually technique. And as a result, the kind of feedback that you can provide isn't based on what you've observed then and there in the competition scenario, where you see somebody with a particular. So I'm usually seeing something and offering some ideas around different ways of approaching something that they've done, just trying to draw their awareness to other opportunities for action. Whereas if you're working in that environment that's isolated from that performance context, you don't really get to see that. So you're basing it on what you can see in front of you. And I know this is something that we were talking about recently.
Yeah. And I know we're here as coaches to try and enhance performance, but I'm still far more committed, if I can, to getting these boys, well, to ensure they have a love of the game. That's critical, because if we can keep them in the game, given that very few of them will go on to play at the very, very highest level, but if we can develop a real passion for the game and a love of the game and they stay in, I think we'll have done a good job. But just to have one of my squad play for England or win the McGregor or win the Reed Trophy, I mean, it's all the accolade for him and I, and you feel as if you're part of that. But I'm far more interested in the boys going away from sessions more able to self-coach, to develop a skill, to know the process of problem solving, to heighten their awareness, to move away from maybe the technical thought that is, if I perfect my swing, I'll be a perfect golfer. Unfortunately, that won't be the case. If you've got perfect skills, you've got a chance. But I mean, we are involved in a performance environment, but I feel as if under 16 England golf is really, for me, very much a development environment. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to always keep the boys on that learning journey, not on the performance journey. But we all love competing. The boys love competing. So you have to give them that, because it needs to be an enjoyable experience. But I'm far more interested in the fact that this lad is where he needs to be to learn a new skill. This lad's in the place that he needs to be to explore, to learn a new skill. And that's probably more where my questions would go with the boys, and the way I might set my constraints up. So maybe a little bit different than some of the other coaches. But yeah, I'm going back to what I saw last night, and you asked some questions and you structured the questions in a way that I thought, yeah, I could use that when I go back to golf. So I'll be stealing some of your ideas.
I'd be interested actually, because I think you're an absolute master questioner, having worked with you and observed you working. So what was it you spotted that you saw me do that in my questioning that you were taking away? Because I'd be interested to know actually.
I know this sounds terrible. This is me certainly knocking myself down, but you've got an empathy at times that I maybe don't quite show. I don't know if it's the Scottish blood in me. This upsets me, but I definitely notice some nice praise. You praise nicely at times. And I have definitely thought I need to do a little bit more of that. A bit like Andy Murray and Judy Murray. Sometimes you think we're just big grumpy Scots, but we're not. But there's definitely something in our culture about, you don't deserve any praise, son. You've done nothing. When the kid has done something, he deserves a little pat in the back. And my daughter's told me that a few times as well. So it's not just my golf. But yeah, I think that was something that was nice. I was listening to you. You would have a chat about something that happened in the game and maybe some potential options that the player could choose to solve the problem differently. And then when you maybe saw the opportunity in a game where a little bit of that popped up, you were quick to praise. I thought that was nice. And I know there was no reaction from the boy at the time because he was involved in the game, but I think that would have a nice impact on him. So yeah, I have said that before. I've said I'm going to do more of that, but I don't like praise for praise's sake. And too often it's easy to praise an outcome. I'm trying to praise a process, and sometimes that's a little bit more challenging in a golf game. That there's not that obviousness of moving a stick in a different way that you can see in hockey. So you saw a body in a stick position that was different, quite different, visibly different, but a very subtle different delivery of a golf club could not be seen necessarily by the naked eye. So I need to dig deeper a little bit. So just to say good shot, and it was a good shot, and there's nothing wrong with saying good shot, but I don't want that to be why the boys are getting praise. I want them to be getting praise because you had an intention to a process goal and you stuck to it. You deserve praise. But I don't know if they stuck to it until I question them. And when I do question them and they do say yes, I probably should say I should probably be a little bit more generous with my applause of that. So that's one of the things I'm definitely going to take.
I think it's interesting actually, and thank you for the observation. But I think what's interesting for me about that is that I actually think that's a thing I need to probably maybe rein in a bit. I feel sometimes a little bit too liberal. And then of course there is a problem with praise, which is that sometimes you're providing it, and then the moment you don't, it might not be because you haven't seen it, but that individual becomes a bit reliant on that praise, that it's you giving them the feedback as opposed to them developing the understanding of what's happening and having their own internal feedback. So they become a bit reliant on that external feedback. So it's and funnily enough, you might be doing yourself a disservice, because don't get me wrong, I have been on the receiving end of some of your quite pointed questions where I'm like, I don't know the answer to this, but so I know what you mean. But you actually, funnily enough, you do praise, but you don't. It's not direct, and I don't know whether you're aware of it or not. But so when you ask an individual, so you clarify the task. Say, so what's the task going to be? The task is we're going to move the club head in this way, and we're going to do that. You don't talk about the outcome, and then the first question you ask is, did you do it? And that individual can either self-congratulate that they did, or essentially critique themselves as having not. And that's actually a form of praise, because essentially you've said, there's a task to be solved, there's a problem to be solved, did you solve it? And I don't necessarily need a fist bump from you or a well done. All I need is to say to you, I did. And it actually feels quite good. So in a weird way, your method elicits a kind of an internal sense of achievement. And I don't necessarily think it necessarily needs that external. Having said that, you're probably right. Sometimes I think when someone, you can see they've gone to town on the work, they've head into it, and you can see they've given it everything to try and get towards something. And when they do find that moment, it probably is worth celebrating the effort they've put into that, isn't it? So, yeah, interesting.
Well, that's a fascinating point that I'd never thought about, that self kind of praise or enjoyment. But I suppose when I'm practicing my own, that's exactly why I do it. I love to practice, and it's that endorphin rush of having had an intention and stuck to your commitment and actually did it. So I did what I intended with a golf club, and maybe the cream on the top of the cake was it produced the outcome that I was hoping it would as well. And that's a pretty powerful place to be. And I suppose it is a kind of little self-praise as such. So yeah, that's a really interesting thought for me. So I don't need to praise anymore. Perfect.
Yeah, the work itself is praise enough. The one thing I wanted to just also pick up on that one as well, and just reflect. This is reflecting on the session I've had with you today, which is, I've been on this journey, trying to work on my skill with a golf club, being able to move a golf club, have awareness of what the golf club is doing, and my role in moving that golf club in certain ways, and the outcomes it brings in terms of the way the ball then is propelled forward, or with how much it curves and how much it doesn't curve, and all these different, and how high it flies and how low it flies, and all these sorts of things that we've been exploring over the past month and today. And what was really interesting about practice, so I've always been a pretty bad practicer, as in I don't really enjoy going to the range. Would much prefer to be on a course, would much prefer to go out there, and if there's no one around, put 5 balls down and play 5 balls and play shots and play in the space. I genuinely believe that's for me. But I think I do get something out of that, but I don't necessarily get a lot out of it. And I've got a lot out of the last few practice sessions, because even today you set me off with a bit of a task, and then I was just go away and do it, work on it. But I got a lot more out of my practice today, and part of that was because I was so attended. I was designing the task. Now it's really odd, isn't it, that I've been working with a constraints-led approach where task constraints, or establishing tasks, or framing a problem and manipulating in different ways to try and solve the problem, is a core part of the way I would coach hockey. But I've never done that to myself with golf. But what I'm doing now is that here's my problem. So I would go, right, I'm going to try this thing. And the first question I ask myself is, did I do it? Did I actually perform the task I was trying to perform? And the second question, and then I tend to begin, look at the outcome. Did I get the outcome I was expecting? So one thing that I've started to do now is I just don't attend to the outcome, or certainly not as much. So, for example, if I get a desired outcome, then I have to double check it, because it could be luck. So I kind of almost have to do that again to see it. Did I do what I think I did? So it's almost like a verification process. I feel like my sense, my proprioception is telling me, or is kind of the feedback I'm getting is that I did what I said I was going to do, but I've got to check to see. So I've got to do it again. And then the outcome becomes a mechanism of verification as to whether I've done what I think I've done, because I could be self-delusional. And then the other bit that was really interesting, just on reflection, was how the way what I would do is because I was changing the task, and the task, I used to have a task of like trying to hit a target or get it close to a target or this, that, and the other. And if I didn't get close to the target, I'd find that annoying, but I wouldn't really know what I needed to do to I would sort of mess around and try and find something that seemed to work, and then when I did, I'd sort of try and latch on to what I thought I'd done that I did work. The difference now is I have much more clarity over what it is I'm trying to do. And it's because I'm not trying to get an outcome, i.e. the ball to land to a target. I'm trying to attend to the process, the movement of the club head. Not the movement of my body, the movement of the club head. And if I attend to that, and what I found today was, out of 20 balls, I only probably didn't go through the process properly and do what I meant to do maybe 3 or 4 times. Outcome wasn't always ideal, but I had way more what I would expect to be intended outcomes than I probably expected to, given where I am on this learning journey. Very long-winded, sorry, rant. But I just wanted to share that with you because I thought from a deep practice perspective, I feel what you've given me is the opportunity to self-learn, self-teach, self-explore, because I've got things to explore within, whereas previously I didn't have anything. I was just, and you didn't, by the way, didn't give those to me. You didn't tell me those. We explored them. I discovered them, and now I'm exploring them more and taking them into different places to find new experiences and challenges. It's very absorbing and quite new.
Well, if it's very absorbing, then we've done a great job. There's 2 kind of ways to look at a task, isn't it? I think if you considered golf primarily as a measurement of the outcome and how well you solve the outcome problems, and then you have a score that gives you a handicap, and you're worth a place in the planet or not. It depends on what your handicap is. But that's an outcome task, and that's fine. That should then drive a technique, and I think that's a very, very natural and good way to start developing and evoking a technique. However, I think the journey that you and I have been on, and too many golfers have been on, is that the kind of natural instinct to pay attention to the tool as it swings, endeavoring to move it in a way that hopefully will solve the problem and produce the outcome. I think that's been driven away from us and dragged away from us by well-meaning people directing our attention elsewhere. So keep your head in the ball, eye in the ball, keep your head down, keep your right knee flexed, turn your shoulders, complete your backswing, start down with the legs, whatever the stuff is. Slowly but surely, your attention is dragged to those, and it should be. In that, if somebody says, "This is what I think you're doing wrong, you should direct your attention here. If you do it right, you'll get better." It's tough to argue with. They could show it to you, they could prove it to you. However, how about we've lost the attention and awareness and sense of what we're doing with the golf club, and then I'm having to actually create a kind of mechanism, as you call it, to direct that attention back. So I'm forcing you to pay attention to the club, which I don't think, if we had our time over again, we should need to do. It should be very, very natural for you to pay attention to the club. So natural that you won't know you're doing it. But now I'm forcing the issue and forcing you to pay attention because you've been away in another journey paying attention to other stuff that's not critical. Your right knee is not critical to the thing that's going to hit the golf ball. The critical factor in the golf ball world, as we know, is the golf club. So let's pay attention to the golf club. And by giving you various tasks, I forced you to pay attention to it throughout the swing, both backswing and downswing, by skewing the task and making it quite complex for someone that's got your ability that could do that. And then you coming back and saying, I did do what I was instructed based on my past experiences, and that's fine. So we could almost let go of the outcome task, so the shot, maybe ballpark it. So let's say a ballpark fade or a ballpark draw, but not really too much of that being the key factor. The exploration is going to be about, I wonder if I move the golf club like this to the right with the club face doing this and the shaft doing that, and what would that produce if I actually did that? So it's like almost, I'm not sure what it will produce, but I'm gonna attend with commitment to moving the club as I've decided to. You hit the shot. First question, as you said, did I deliver the club as intended? And it has to be enough of a complexity to engage you. And if your answer is yes, then you can look at the outcome and think, that is interesting. It did not draw anything like as much as I thought. It faded much more than I would have thought. That is all. It's not a reverse engineering. It's a kind of opposite of reverse engineering in a way. But rather than letting the shot in this situation drive the technique, let's deliver the club in a way that we'll just see what that produces. And if you truly were engaged, you should be able to then adjust the next delivery if you would like to change the outcome. So if the ball faded too much, change it. And I should be able to come in and say, okay, Stuart, given the feedback in the last shot when you were fully engaged, you admitted and agreed you were fully engaged in what you did with the golf club, then can you adjust the next delivery? Yeah. When and where are you going to adjust the next delivery? Are you going to adjust it preparing for impact on the backswing? Are you going to prepare for impact and adjust it on the downswing? Or are you going to do a little bit of both? So I'm really digging deep. I'm really forcing the issue here. You'll say, well, I opened the club a lot on the downswing in the last one. I'm going to open less. Great. And you do it. The answer to the question is, or the question is that I'm looking for an answer to is, did you do it there? I did. Was it less open? Yep. To the best of my awareness, right now, that was less open. What happened? It went bullet straight. Great. So now we know we've got these parameters of awareness, so we work between them. So that's, whilst it is still about the task leading the technique, I think it's more about the exploration of the club awareness and the delivery that might then produce outcomes. I think that's a slightly different way. I think if you and I again had our time over and maybe we went and learned the game left hand, cat hand, stepping in. Imagine that as that became the game. So we're going to play the opposite way around. We're going to step into the ball and we're going to put our hands the opposite way around. So left below right or right below left, doesn't matter. I think we would then access a far more natural process where you would pay attention to the club and you wouldn't have to force yourself with that. And it can be, it's quite demanding in the system, I think, when you're not used to paying attention to the club, to pay attention to the club. And you have a session, a deep practice session, and you come away and you're quite tired mentally because it's not what I normally do. And I think it shouldn't be that demanding, because if we turn the other way around, I think you access that awareness far more naturally. And it seems simple, easy, but we've driven that away, I think, and we're having to fight to get it back. The good news is, if it was intense today, it will get easier. But I still would love you to be so engaged that it's not to the point where you start getting blasé. And I think if you kept exploring and negotiating different deliveries to see what it produced, it would keep you engaged. That'll keep you enjoying it, the process, rather than, okay, I've now done it, I've now mastered it. No, you haven't. Nobody has, you haven't, nobody ever will. But do you want to practice for the sheer love of the enjoyment of practicing and exploring? If you do, those endorphins will keep getting released. You'll keep going back. If you keep doing the same delivery over and over again, eventually your brain's going to start saying, I'm getting a bit bored here, Stuart. Can we not do something different? So I think that was a long-winded answer to your long-winded question.
I think though that one of the things I did pick up from today as well was that when I was left to my own devices, my natural kind of brain that finds it difficult to keep its attention on one thing for more than about half a second, wanted to go from one thing to the next. One time I'm trying to draw the ball, the next time I'm trying to fade the ball, and I'm trying to fade the ball round the tyre and get it over there by the thing. And did I get that? Didn't. I'm doing all these different things, and I get the outcome focus again. So then I'll go back to attending to the task. But what I probably need to do is I need to explore within one shot. So I've got one shape, and I'm saying, right, let's see what do I need? What do I need to do? How do I need to move it? The club head to get the ball to curve with with a bit of extreme movement. Now it's slightly less, and how do I get it to then even more? So it's refining and getting smaller within one shot shape rather than flicking from one to the next. But the one thing I was pleased with today was I felt like I had the shot shape, not necessarily with where it was landing, but I could deliver the shot shape on demand, based on my intention and with different setups and different ways of delivering the shot shape. So it wasn't always because I'd open the club face at the last minute, but sometimes I'd held it open, and I could deliver the shot shape I was looking for using different ways of delivering that shot shape. Now, obviously, I don't want to get too bogged into to the minutiae of golf coaching, as interested as I am in it. But what I'm interested in is some of the takeaways around where this could be applied and which other sport and where in different sports could this be applied. And I think for me, vast majority of sports have moments of essentially what you might call a closed skill, where there isn't the dynamics of the opponent trying to take the ball away from you. In rugby, I can think of goal kicking, where that's an individual, and there's a lot of similarities. In football, I can see the same with a free kick or a penalty, or there is no one can take that ball off you. You can kick the ball how you want to kick the ball, and I think there's opportunities for coaches. You don't really see, like in American football, you see special teams coaches, and they just focus on particular moments like kickoff returns and things like that. But I wonder if in football enough emphasis is given to those set pieces. In hockey, for example, a penalty corner is a good opportunity to score. You get somebody who's got an opportunity to essentially have a free strike on goal. And I think we could explore this approach to learning the movements involved in those less dynamic scenarios. We could use and adopt this methodology by making people attend to the thing that propels the object. So in the case of football, it's a leg and it's a foot, and it's the way that foot is going to impart spin on the ball. It makes me think of Cristiano Ronaldo when he did that free kick that everybody found amazing, where he's essentially almost kicking the ball into the floor and then creating this kind of exaggerated top spin so that it goes over the top of a wall and dips in, and we're still with pace. And everybody thought that was just something like witchcraft. It's not witchcraft. It's somebody who's prepared to get immersed in finding a way to propel the object towards its intended target. And he clearly had got immersed in that process. He may have had a coach. I doubt he had. So it's really interesting. I think even in the team sport context, I think there's the takeaway there of really working on those kind of key moments that are potentially game changing: penalty, free kick, penalty kick in rugby, etc., and helping individuals become really attuned to the way they're going to deliver the foot or the hand or the racket or whatever it might be.
I would doubt that certainly in football, the awareness of what you're doing with your foot. If you ask Ronaldo, I don't think he would say I'm amazing at football because I've got super heightened foot awareness. He's not going to say that. But I think he is so naturally in tune with his foot, it's amazing. If you asked him to hit it with the laces or the instep or the outside or the big toe, he's not going to mess up and go, oh, I can't believe that. I meant to hit it with my big toe and I hit it with my instep. He's not going to make that mistake. I think it's a very easy instruction to say, Ronaldo, deliver your foot in this way, strike the ball like that, and he'll just do it. So I think there's a very natural foot awareness. If you get caught up in your head and you're worried about the outcome and there's a voice going on about what if, then that's a challenge. So that's maybe a different skill. But certainly in hockey, to me, a lot of the skills, not all of them, of course, because there's more skills than just stick skills, but stick skills is down to me about stick awareness, exploration. And as I mentioned earlier, I was in Holland and I was very fortunate to give a very gifted young girl a tennis lesson, which is something I've never done, and it was just fantastic. And all I tried to do with that girl was heighten her awareness of the racket, because it was definitely being dragged, her attention was being dragged to the outcome. There was no doubt about that. She was a lot of the time maybe hitting too many shots in a rote state, and I don't think being as engaged. Creativity, exploration of delivering the racket in different ways to see if that would produce different outcomes was never considered. And to me, that would not be healthy. Trying to ask the player to develop touch, feel, creativity, disguise. How would disguise be important? Critical in tennis. And to me, disguise is just racket awareness, because you actually know you're showing the player the racket going one way, and you know that you're going to just manipulate it and flip it past them in the other direction. So I would say that could easily be applied. These principles could be easily applied. They shouldn't need to be applied, I don't think. But even in cricket, I believe now an enormous amount of batting practice is done with a video camera behind. And one of the gentlemen I know is a professional cricketer, said that he would hit an enormous amount of shots or bowled at him, and after every strike walk round behind and look at the video to see primarily where his body had been positioned. And he did wonder himself if that was healthy or not. And that's the way technology's gone, isn't it? And it's sort of creeping into all these sports. But the cricket ball doesn't know, and to think of the speed and the variety of ways that a cricket ball can come to you, you certainly are not going to be given the opportunity to get your body in the perfect position. And to me, if we played tennis and everybody got fed as this girl was tending to be fed the ball into the perfect position within reasons, what happens when the ball's not in the perfect position? So it's almost like you need to encourage her to do it so the body isn't in the perfect position, it's not moving efficiently as described by a biomech, but the racket awareness is so heightened now that she can get the ball back and from positions she couldn't get it back before because she's explored it. So I think there's room for this approach, because I don't think this is an approach. I think this is just learning. It's just like we need to go back to learning. We need to go back to exploration. We need to go back to discovery. And you're trying to do that in your game. I'm trying to do that in my game. And let's pay attention, because concentration is important. Let's pay attention to a critical factor, the racket, the bat, the club, and let's explore. No right and wrong, so but surely you can't do that. Well, go and explore delivering the club like that and see what happens. But I read in a book, well, let that be, So go and explore having shaft lean going in the wrong direction. Actually intentionally flick the ball up in the air. The shot that you don't want. The technique, the scooping action that you've got that you don't know you've got. Well, do it intentionally. Start with the shaft ahead, slightly leaning forward, and impact the ball intentionally with the shaft leaning back. And for the first time in your life, you'll have actually delivered the swing that you do unintentionally, intentionally. And right at that moment, I think you're opening the door to potential of becoming a completely different player. Now start with the shaft in this position and impact it with the shaft in a different position. And when are you going to do that, Stuart? I'm going to do it in the downswing. Great. Did you? I did. Fantastic. So let's do it differently and keep that exploration, because for 20 years I was trying to get rid of stuff and come to this kind of finite point of perfection. And now I'm trying to take every day I have away from that. I'm trying to work away from that. I'm trying to work on totally and utterly limitless exploration and problem solving. Stuff that people might say, but I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to use that. I said, I know you're not going to use that technique. But exploring all those will eventually let you, not me, not anyone else, you decide, well, how do you want to deliver the club? Well, through experience, I deliver all of this. This is the best way I find to produce that shot. Then the ownership's with the player again, isn't it? And the exploration is, if you take it as for what it is, it'll keep you engaged as it did today. It'll release endorphins. It'll make you want to do it again. And my God, if we could just get people that want to come and practice because it's exciting and interesting, and they actually feel as if they're starting to develop some sort of control, we'll maybe not lose as many players as we are, because Scotland's losing more players than any country in the blooming European Union. I won't be part of that soon, but it's not. I know we're going.
Like the rest of us.
Yeah, and I know we're going off at a tangent, but it's not because golf takes too long, in my opinion. No. All the stuff that says that's the reason why people are not playing are wrong. For me, they're wrong. The reason people are not playing is because of the experience they're getting from golf. If they get this buzz going to practice, they would want to practice, let me tell you, because they go and watch football for 6 hours on a Saturday afternoon. They jump on a bike and go for 3-hour runs, but somehow they haven't got time to play golf. let me tell you, you'd be phoning home and making pretty pathetic excuses to sneak your way to the range if you were getting enough of a buzz about, do you know what? This is exciting. This isn't luck. I'm in charge of this club. I'm starting to learn stuff here. I want to do this again. I think that's why golf is in the mess it's in, and all the technical coaching is sucking that out of us.
And it's not just golf. It's not just golf. I mean, you've said a couple of things there that I think are really important, and this is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about championing this approach. This, kind of, you call it environmentally driven, task-based, constraints-based, ecological. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about this as an approach is you just use some words that I believe are anathema to many people's coaching experience, not just the recipient, but the person delivering it as well. You use words like limitless. You use words like exploration. You use words like unrestricted. And these are words that are joyful words. They're free. Freedom. Yes. What a wonderful idea. As opposed to the model that is often touted. And I'm thinking of a very famous golf coach who has a book that would have sold millions of copies entitled Faults and Fixes. Faults and fixes. That's the model. That's the concept. We're fixing faults. It's like naturally reductionist, naturally negative in its starting position, and that's the dominant narrative, and that's not just golf. That's any sport, where a coach's job is seen to be to fix, to provide answers, solve problems. And what's interesting, you mentioned the cricket example. You probably haven't had time to listen to this week's podcast with Sean Larkin, but he's a baseball coach, and he was talking about how professional baseball players, couldn't believe this, professional baseball players stand with a ball on a tee, hitting a ball on a tee. Now, I'm not saying hitting a ball on a tee is necessarily a bad thing if you're attending to the right thing, but I doubt they are. What they're doing is they're just hitting a ball on a tee. And when actually in their game, the ball doesn't arrive on a tee. It comes at them. Therefore, doing that doesn't seem to me to be able to help them solve their problem, because their problem is the ball arriving. So we talked about that in some detail. But what I'm trying to get towards is, you mentioned the cricket, the batter. What it seems to me we've done in sport is, or what coaching has sort of done or moved in the direction of doing, is we've kind of either asked players or players have willingly, or whether it's not willingly, without realizing they've seeded this, they've basically outsourced feedback. So they've either outsourced it to a camera, just another pair of eyes, because I don't know what I'm doing, but the camera will tell me. Why don't you know what you're doing? Or we've outsourced it to a coach's eyes or a coach's. So we're reliant on either a piece of technology or an individual to give us the feedback. What I always think is fascinating is that in a golf context often, and actually in many cases, the coach is outsourcing their own eyes to the video. So it's even worse. So don't get me wrong, sometimes that shows you things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see. That's fine. Get that and all that sort of stuff. It helps you to make more informed decisions about different things you might want to do. But my point being is that we should never be in a position as coaches where we are asking players to outsource feedback to us. They should be the source of the feedback. That's one of the things I think is genius about the way you operate. The feedback comes from us. We don't always know the answer, and that's one of the reasons. But one of the reasons we don't know the answer is we haven't attended to the right thing. So you've asked me questions about what I was doing with my club, and I would often say things like, you'd say, did you do it? And I would say, I think so. And you would say, don't you know? And I'm like, no, I don't know. But I don't know why I don't know. And the reason why I don't know is I didn't attend to the right thing. My attention was elsewhere. And I think it takes people quite a long time to place their attention in the right thing. You probably experienced that quite a lot. But this idea that you've just pointed to me around, we have outsourced feedback to other people, that's fundamentally flawed. We must provide, the feedback must be from the participant to us, not the other way around.
Well, I love some of your terminology. Outsource the feedback. That is also going back to Scotland. That'll be my next presentation. Thank you for that. How did the first golfer learn?
Yeah.
Can you ever imagine the shepherd or whoever he was? I think I'll go home because I'm not doing so well on my stones and my stick today. So I've got that big mirror in the garage. I'm going to go and get it and hang it on that tree, and then I'll be able to see what I can't see. The shepherd would never ever consider that because he was totally aware of what he was doing, wasn't he? So, as you said, if you outsource it and it's to a video camera. So my question to the person who walked in, there's been some amazingly disastrous, horrible experiences with that journey from some of the best players, Stuart Appleby and people like that. So my question would be, if we walk around and we now look at the swing, and I'm now looking at it with the player, and I'm saying, I'm going to ask you a question now, Stuart. You can be Appleby or Armstrong, but let's say it's Armstrong. Stuart, I'm going to ask you a question.
I'll go for Appleby. I'm
going to ask you the question about what we're now watching. Yeah, said, what do you think the level of club awareness was when you're looking at that? How high do you think the club awareness of that swing is looking? So if I ask you something you can't see, where are we then? So, well, I don't know. I can't see his level of club awareness. I said, well, you and I have agreed that the only thing that's going to hit the ball is the club. So paying attention to the club, we've agreed, is critical. But when you look at a video camera, can you tell how, even you looking at yourself, now you know how much attention you had in the club? You didn't need a video. You didn't need a video. Yeah, but if I see what I'm doing wrong, I'll be able to fix it. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not attending to the critical factor. Do that, and faults will miraculously disappear because you'll be able to just deliver the club differently and have a new experience. We've said it before, Stuart. Keep saying it again. You learn from experience in everything. So we believe. You learn to walk through experience and talk through experience and catch through experience, movement skills, all through experience. You don't learn golf through experience because you're not experiencing the club moving in real time. And you're not doing that because you're not paying attention to it. And you're not doing that because you've been forced by well-meaning people to pay attention to stuff that's not critical. Then because of the structure and the way the game's designed, you're more interested in outcomes and scores and handicaps than you are in the process of actually learning the skills that ultimately will lead you to have lower scores, handicaps, and better skills. That's the thing. You can't look at a video even of yourself and tell me how much attention you had in the club. You can't. Neither can the coach. There's a chance you could maybe give some insight. Coach can give you none. So if I looked at a coach and said, so what do you think his club awareness is there? And they would go, what are you talking about? I was just looking, he's a bit off playing, a bit below playing and flipping it. No, I didn't ask you that. I was just wondering what his level of awareness of a club was. They're snookered. It's snookered. And yet if you have an experience with the club, you open the gates, don't you? You open the door to potentially doing whatever you want with the club. And I think if you do that, you will make some discoveries that will make you think, wow, I'm not broken. I don't need fixed. In fact, I think I could be pretty good at this game. The self-esteem, everything that you want in life has just been almost microcosmed into just moving this stick and hitting this ball. Apart from that, it's not worth playing.
I think this has been a fascinating conversation. So I'm going to draw this part to a close because I think it's been a really interesting discussion. So in the interest of praise, thank you for being part of that and for being part of actually helping me to not only with my with my playing, kind of find a new world to explore within that I now just is a fantastically joyful space to be in, and it's definitely changed where I am with my golf. And I was in a pretty all right place, and I'm even better. So that's just boom for me. So I really appreciate that. But also the insights that we've just shared with each other here, and the opportunities to I guess, reflect together and take away some really good learnings. And I think for me that's a really important. The one big takeaway I've taken from that conversation is our emphasis around this idea that we think if we can provide people with more information externally, either through the video will tell me what I need to do. It's just an external source of information, or from me as a coach telling you or offering you something external, all sorts of information. That kind of model of behavior, that is not going to bring about behavior change. Internal information and a heightened awareness of the internal information that is constantly flowing through you is what's going to bring about behavior change in any walk of life.
Absolutely. This is not golf. It's just that's a medium.
So thank you very much. Now, in case we don't get onto it in another episode, I know you've got a conference coming up. So can you give people details of that? Because obviously you're going to get golf coaches wanting to come to listen to more of these kinds of insights. But I've got a feeling you might get some coaches from different walks of life coming along to learn what they can learn in the golf context. So where is it? When is it? How do people find out about it?
Well, I would love non-golf coaches to come along because, as I said, this is about learning. It's at the heart of everything we do is learning. Yeah, every year we do a 3-day summit, coaching summit, with a very, very good friend of mine and an astonishing coach that you know at Woodhall Spa, which is England Golf's headquarters in Lincolnshire. It is the most difficult place to get to in the world, but it's worth it. It really is worth it. The facilities are amazing. It's such a beautiful place, and it's worth the sat nav taking you up the wrong road a few times before you get there. 24th to the 26th of April, and if people would like to be there, contact me. Places are limited. We do try and keep it small. It's not a big conference. It's a very hands-on. So even if you're not a golfer, you will still enjoy the hands-on because we'll temper it to suit your particular needs. Contact me, Kendal McWade, at kendal.mcwade@btconnect.com. And my telephone number is 07770 and I'm happy to take your calls anytime. And we'll look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Stuart.
Kendal, that's great. If you do go, be prepared to be asked pointed questions, be given very little praise, and for your brain to hurt. Kendal, thank you very much. So there you have it. What a conversation that was. Literally just, sitting there, spent the day with Kendal, working away at my game, just talking about the world of coaching, and I just had to record it. I just had to basically take the time to record what we were talking about and to share some of our experiences, because some of it was just so profound that I felt it was really important for the podcast to hear it. There's a number of ways if you want to support the talent equation. If you like what I talk about, you like the guests, and you like some of the things that we're doing, and it's helping you with your coaching, there's a number of ways you can support it. Head over to the website, thetalentequation.co.uk. There's a little tab on the top there says become a patron, and you can click on the Patreon, and you can support the podcast from as little as to $2.50, equivalent of buying me a cup of coffee, right up to becoming a fully fledged sponsor, and that is ridiculously cheap at the moment. So if anybody's thinking of sponsoring, then please get involved. Anyway, I really appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation that we've had. Don't forget to leave me reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts, because other people, might be looking at this and thinking, "What's this all about?" And your reviews might help them take the step to becoming a subscriber, which is always good. So anyway, in the meantime, I hope your coaching goes well, and I'll see you next week.